A stranger would say it was just a moment, one chaotic night, one impulsive act, but I've learned some nights don't just end, they begin everything. If you ask me how my life changed, I'll tell you it started with headlights slicing across wet asphalt, my drunk boss slumped against my chest, and the choice I made in the rain. But if you stay until the end, you'll understand why the next morning, when she looked at me with clear eyes and refused to pretend it never happened, everything I thought I knew about strength, loyalty, and second chances shattered, and rebuilt itself into something new. This is how a single dad saved his drunk boss, and how she ended up saving him back. That I never expected trouble that night. My shift at the warehouse had ended 2 hours late, just another day of lifting boxes and punching in overtime I'd never get paid for. My daughter Nor was asleep at my neighbor's. I'd promised I'd pick her up before midnight. My life was predictable, exhausting, safe in its own dull way. But trouble doesn't knock, it crashes. I found my boss, Eliza Hale, outside the bar 2 streets away from the warehouse. She wasn't the type to drink in public, at least not from what I knew. To us workers, she was the Iron Woman, young, sharp, unstoppable, the one who kept the company from collapsing under greedy board members. She was the woman everyone assumed had everything. But that night she sat against the wall in the rain, head in her hands, trembling like the world had just taken something from her. At first, I almost walked past. Bosses don't notice people like me unless they're giving orders. But when she lifted her face, eyes glossy with both alcohol and something else, fear? Grief, I couldn't pretend I didn't recognize her. And I couldn't ignore the men across the street taking a little too much interest in her condition. She tried to stand but stumbled, her ankle twisting. I didn't think, I just ran to her. She whispered my name like she wasn't sure if she was dreaming, and then those men started walking toward us. I put her arm over my shoulder and told her, "We're leaving." "You don't have to," she slurred. "I do," I said. The men didn't like that. They followed. One grabbed my shoulder. I shoved him back. Another tried blocking the street. I carried her, literally lifted her into my arms, and ran. My lungs burned, my legs shook, but she clung to me with both hands, muffling her crying against my shirt. The rain soaked us completely. The world was blurred lights and pounding footsteps. We made it to my old car. I locked the doors, slammed the engine on, and drove without looking back. She fell asleep halfway through the ride, fingers still curled tightly in the fabric of my sleeve, like if she let go she'd fall into pieces. I couldn't take her to her penthouse in this state. I couldn't let the paparazzi catch her. I couldn't leave her alone. So I took her home. My home, small, dim, walls peeling, the living room filled with Nor's colored drawings and mismatched toys. I laid my boss on the couch, covered her with the only warm blanket we had, and sat nearby so she wouldn't wake up afraid. She whispered something in her sleep. A name. Then, "Don't leave me." I didn't. I picked up Nor later, explained vaguely that a friend needed help, and she nodded like she understood everything adults complicate. Nor kissed my arm and slept again. When morning sunlight stretched across the living room, my boss sat up, pressing her palms to her temples. I prepared myself for what always follows kindness: denial, dismissal, distance. People like her don't want to owe anything to people like me, except she didn't pretend, she didn't fake ignorance. She didn't act embarrassed. She didn't coldly thank me and leave. She looked at me, really looked, with vulnerability she never allowed at work, and the first words she said were, "You saved me." No excuses. No lies. No rewriting of the night, just truth, and that was the beginning of everything I never expected to happen. That morning changed the rhythm of my world in a way I didn't see coming. Nor peeked at her shyly from behind the hallway door, clutching her stuffed bunny, and instead of looking uncomfortable, Eliza smiled gently and asked if she could say hello. Nor smiled back. Somehow, in a room of peeling wallpaper and second-hand furniture, the most powerful woman in our company softened enough to look almost fragile. "I caused you trouble," she muttered. "You were in trouble," I corrected. "There's a difference." She exhaled, long and shaky. "I don't usually lose control like that." "No one does," I said. "Not until they do." She studied me with a searching expression, as if trying to understand why I didn't judge her, why I didn't want anything from her. When she realized she was still wrapped in Noor's flower-printed blanket, she laughed softly, quiet, humble, grateful. She stayed for breakfast, burnt toast and scrambled eggs that Noor proudly made, and she ate it like it was something precious, but when she stood to leave, she turned to me with eyes weighed down by a secret she wasn't ready to share. "I won't forget what you did," she said. "And I won't let it be just a moment." Then she left. I thought that would be it, that I was wrong. The next day at work, she didn't hide behind her cold professional mask. Instead, she called me to her office. My coworkers stared like I'd been summoned for execution, but when I walked in, she wasn't angry, she was nervous. "I need to repay you," she said immediately. "That's not why I helped." "I know. That's why I have to." She began offering things: safer hours, better equipment, overtime pay that didn't disappear under adjustments. I refused each one until she grew frustrated. "Then tell me what you want," she said. That I hesitated, then told her the truth: stability. A chance to be there for my daughter. That's it. Something in her broke, not in a painful way, but like a door unlocking. She lowered her voice. "I know what it's like to grow up without stability," she whispered. "I won't let the company take that from you." That's how she transferred me to a safer, higher-paying department. How she started checking on me not as a boss but as a human being. How she began visiting Noor with little presents she claimed were leftovers from meetings, even though they weren't. Slowly, carefully, she slipped into our lives, and we slipped into hers, but with closeness comes truth, and the truth behind her drunken breakdown was darker than I expected. The board was planning to force her out of the company she'd rebuilt. Someone close to her had betrayed her. She'd been fighting alone for months. Not anymore. I stood by her because she hadn't pretended to forget. Because she gave me respect in a world that rarely offered any. Because she let Noor draw flowers on the arm of her perfectly ironed blazer and proudly wore them through meetings, and because saving her once had saved me in ways I wasn't brave enough to admit. Her battles became ours. My struggles became hers. We built something quiet and strong between us, something real. By the time everything came to a head, when she confronted the board with proof of their sabotage and I stood behind her, no longer invisible, she didn't thank me, she said something else. "I'm not fighting this alone anymore," she whispered. "Not as long as you stay." And I did, because real family isn't always born, it's chosen in moments of fear, loyalty, and truth. Sometimes it starts on a rainy street with a drunk boss and a single dad who couldn't walk away, and sometimes that moment changes everything.